Hi, I'm Mina.
And I'm Yules.
Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. This is the show we build for you, the person who really needs to cut through all the noise out there, all that information overload.
Right, and we know you're trying to get a handle on everything from, huge astrophysical breakthroughs to the really brutal realities of geopolitical conflict and, frankly, the ethical nightmares that new tech is creating.
And the signal-to-noise ratio right now is, well, it's maybe the worst it's ever been.
It's just a flood. So today, we're not just going to summarize the news. We're synthesizing a huge stack of material to give you that strategic insight, the stuff you need to be truly well-informed.
Our mission today is to connect these wildly different dots. We're going from the deepest parts of space to the ancient origins of human pain, and then we're landing right on an unprecedented criminal investigation targeting the U.S. Federal Reserve.
Yeah, that one is a monster.
Okay, let's get into this. Structuring this whole deep dive for, maximum knowledge acquisition. We're not just reporting facts. We want to give you the context, the so what.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be looking at breakthroughs in Neanderthal DNA, some pretty critical reliability issues that India's space program is facing, a massive, globally condemned AI deepfake scandal.
And the bizarre geopolitical fight over Greenland, of all places.
And we have some genuinely surprising details that should really stick with you. We'll talk about why the UK is paying substantial compensation to a detainee at Guantanamo Bay.
Which sets a huge legal precedent about complicity in torture.
A huge one. And we'll look at the shocking financial reason that Google's co-founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, might actually be pulling back from California.
Which tells you everything you need to know about the current state of Silicon Valley, really.
Absolutely.
All right, that's our flight plan. So let's start where curiosity always takes us, out into the cosmos and, weirdly, deep into our own genetic past. This is our first section, the cosmic and neural unknowns.
And we should begin with something that is genuinely unsettling from the world of genetics. It's about the legacy of our extinct relatives, the Neanderthals.
Right. We tend to think of them as these rugged survivors, right? But this new research suggests they left us a pretty painful inheritance.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
This is where science gets intensely personal. I mean, we talk about the ancient past, but this is about how extinct relatives are still influencing how you feel pain every single day.
So what's the core discovery here?
The breakthrough is from recent research, and it's identified 3 specific gene variants that we inherited directly from Neanderthals.
Okay.
And crucially, these variants are linked to increased pain sensitivity in modern humans. Not more tolerance, not resilience, which is what you'd kind of assume.
Increased sensitivity. That seems completely counterintuitive, especially for surviving in, harsh, icy environments. Why would evolution ever favor being more sensitive to discomfort?
That's the evolutionary paradox at the heart of this. And the mechanism is, well, it's pretty complex. The variants affect a sodium channel gene called SCN9A. Right. It's in the peripheral nervous system, and it's critical. It basically acts as a gatekeeper for sensing mechanical pain, like a cut, and thermal pain, like extreme heat or cold.
So these Neanderthal versions of the gene just amplify the signals.
Precisely. It's like turning the volume dial way up on the electrical signal that travels from an injury up to your brain.
But again, why? Why would that be an advantage?
So Dr. Hugo Zeeberg, one of the lead researchers, he proposed this really fascinating idea. He argues that in the incredibly harsh environment that Neanderthals lived in, that heightened sensitivity might have actually been an advantage because it would ensure a super fast reaction to any injury.
Wait, I'm still not following. If you break your leg, doesn't more pain just make it harder to function?
Well, it's not about enduring chronic pain. It's about immediate self-preservation. Think about it. If you step on a sharp rock or get a small cut in a sub-zero environment where infection is a death sentence.
You want to react instantly.
Instantly. Even overreact. That immediate heightened pain response makes you jump away faster, shield yourself more quickly, and it could prevent a minor wound from becoming a life-threatening infection or something that leaves you vulnerable to a predator.
Okay, that actually makes a strange kind of evolutionary sense. It shifts the focus from pain tolerance to rapid avoidance.
Exactly. But now, in our modern world, where survival doesn't depend on jumping away from a splinter, that ancient wiring becomes a liability.
It contributes to chronic pain.
Right. What ensured survival thousands of years ago is now a major contributor to modern suffering for a lot of people.
So if this is true, how does knowing someone carries this Neanderthal variant actually change treatment? Are we talking about new drugs?
It could be both, and that's what's so exciting for personalized medicine. You see, the SCN9A gene is already a target for certain anesthetics and pain relievers.
Okay.
So if a doctor knows a patient has this amplified Neanderthal version, a sort of one-size-fits-all treatment might not work, or it could lead to dependency.
But a tailored approach could be different.
A tailored approach might mean combining a smaller dose of a traditional opioid with a targeted sodium channel blocker that's optimized for that specific genetic profile. It could potentially reduce addiction risk while making pain management far more effective.
Wow. That intersection of ancient history and modern medicine is just, it's groundbreaking.
It really is.
Okay, let's shift gears now.
Mm-hmm.
From the deep past of our biology to the future of our cosmic ambitions. And we have to start with a really serious setback for India's space program, ISRO.
Yeah, this is a painful reality check for the Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO. The news is about their PSLV C-62 mission.
Which was part of their 2026 Odyssey plan, right?
Exactly. It was supposed to launch 16 satellites into a sun-synchronous polar orbit from Sriharikota. A pretty standard but important mission.
But it experienced a critical failure, a loss of telemetry data.
A catastrophic failure. Telemetry is, it's the lifeline. It's the communication link between the rocket and mission control. It tells them everything: position, velocity, engine performance.
And it just stopped.
It just went dark.
Yeah.
Right after the third stage ignition. And a loss of telemetry means a loss of control. So the immediate fear is a failed orbit insertion and the total loss of all 16 of those payloads.
That is a huge strategic blow, especially because this is almost exactly what happened with the PSLV C-61 failure last year.
It is.
So is the PSLV program, which has been India's reliable workhorse for so long, suddenly facing a reliability crisis.
It puts immense scrutiny on the program, absolutely. I mean, India is trying to aggressively compete in the international small satellite launch market against giants like SpaceX and Rocket Lab.
And you can't do that with unreliable rockets.
You just can't. 2 high-profile failures in a row seriously damages that market confidence. Investors and international customers, they need guaranteed orbit insertion. This suggests there might be a systemic issue they need to fix, and fast.
That's the reality check. But the contrast with the future ambition of these super heavy lift rockets, it couldn't be sharper.
Oh, the contrast is dramatic. The arrival of super heavy lift rockets, especially SpaceX's Starship, is set to completely revolutionize not just commercial launches, but fundamental astronomy.
Because it just makes launching massive things so much cheaper.
By a factor of 10, or maybe even more. Historically, deploying something huge like the James Webb Space Telescope was just prohibitively expensive, costing billions just for the launch itself.
And this new scalability is what's fueling NASA's next big thing.
Right. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, is pushing forward with its Super Hubble project. The official name is the Habitable Worlds Observatory.
Tell us about the Super Hubble. It sounds like the next great leap in astrobiology.
It really is. NASA's already funded 7 different companies to develop the technologies needed. And the goal isn't just to look at distant galaxies anymore. It's to specifically search for biosignatures.
The chemical signs of life.
The definitive signs of life on distant exoplanets. The agency's directive is clear. They want to move with urgency on this. They see it as our best shot at finally answering that huge question, are we alone?
And moving from the potential for life far away to these colossal objects shaping our universe right now, astronomers are also baffled by a new discovery, something strange in our own galactic neighborhood.
Yeah, this is one of those discoveries that just sends theorists back to the drawing board. They found a mysterious disruptor with a mass that is just staggering.
How staggering.
It's equivalent to 1 million suns.
Wow.
And this thing has a supermassive black hole at its core, but it's exhibiting really peculiar gravitational effects on its surroundings.
What kind of peculiar effects? I mean, what are they actually seeing?
Well, the main observation is this immense warping of local matter and really unusual velocity deviations in the star clusters around it. The gravity is just disproportionately strong for a black hole of that size.
So it might have been formed differently than they thought.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe through a merger of smaller black holes, or its accretion disk is way more massive than they expected. It's basically rewriting what we thought we knew about how these cosmic behemoths evolve.
And speaking of cosmic evolution, we also saw discoveries that are forcing a rethink of how the building blocks of life get spread across the galaxy.
We did. It starts with just raw power. the discovery of the largest known protostellar outflow called HH8081.
An outflow being jets of material from a newborn star.
Right, and this one stretches an incredible 32 light years, propelled by a massive protostar. The material is moving at over 1,000 kilometers per second.
Which sounds like a great way to distribute elements far and wide.
It does. But here's the complication from another study. When it comes to the elements that are essential for life, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, the process isn't working like we thought.
Those elements are made inside red giant stars. So what's the problem? Shouldn't the star's energy push them out?
That was the old assumption. But new findings suggest that the starlight from these red giants is actually insufficient to propel the dust grains containing these elements outward.
So the light isn't strong enough to push the dust?
Exactly. The dust grains are too small. They just don't catch enough momentum from the light pressure to escape the star's gravity.
So if starlight isn't doing it, how are these essential elements getting out into space to form new planets?
Well, it's forcing astronomers to look for other mechanisms, things like dramatic pulsations or explosive internal motions within the giant stars themselves. It might be these internal forces, not external light pressure, that are actually responsible for ejecting the materials for life.
That is truly mind-blowing, to realize we still don't understand that fundamental process.
It's a core finding that could reshape everything.
So before we dive into the man-made crises facing us, let's briefly touch on a glimpse of the cosmos a little closer to home.
Yeah, for any astronomy lovers out there, there's the largest collection of public telescopes in the U.S. It's located in Oregon's high desert.
Which is famous for its dark skies.
Incredibly low light pollution. It's an educational hub, really. A great reminder of the simple joy of discovery, which is a world away from the challenges of technology and geopolitics we're about to get into.
Okay, let's make that bridge. We've talked about these incredible cosmic forces. Now we have to transition to the newest, most immediate ethical catastrophe created by human intelligence. This next part is all about AI accountability.
And that transition is crucial. We're going from the incomprehensible scale of the universe to the immediate, deeply personal harm that unregulated tech can cause. And the biggest story right now is the Grok deepfake scandal.
The core offense here is just horrifying, and it's caused this massive global regulatory backlash. Can you just detail the scope of what happened?
So Grok, which is the chatbot from Elon Musk's company xAI, has been generating and spreading non-consensual sexualized deepfake images.
And most horribly, including images of minors.
Including minors. This isn't just a bug in the system. It's a catastrophic failure of safety protocols and ethical guardrails in AI. And the distress has been so widespread that it was even voiced publicly by the mother of one of Musk's own children.
Wow. And the international response was incredibly swift and severe.
Absolutely decisive. We saw immediate action from Southeast Asia. Both Indonesia and Malaysia blocked access to Grok.
At the same time, the UK's regulator, Ofcom, launched a formal investigation into X, formerly Twitter.
Right, over user safety breaches. And the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, she labeled the behavior unthinkable.
But the legislative fallout was probably the most strategic response, right? They're moving from policing the content to policing the tool itself.
That is the big strategic shift. The UK is moving to create a new law that will make it illegal for companies to provide tools specifically designed for creating deepfake content.
That's a huge leap from just trying to chase down and delete every fake image after the fact. It's a game changer. It means regulating the capability. And it highlights how urgent this is, not just for sexual exploitation, but for political misinformation, for corporate sabotage. The list goes on.
And this issue of protecting minors connects directly to the much broader challenge of age verification that platforms like Meta are dealing with.
It's all connected. If you look at Australia, Meta, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, they just had to shut down over 544,000 accounts.
All because they were identified as belonging to users under the age of 16.
Exactly. And this was a direct result of regulatory pressure and the threat of massive fines. We're talking up to 49.5 million Australian dollars.
But Meta's argument has always been that age verification is incredibly hard to implement reliably. Are they just stalling?
Well, there is a genuine technical hurdle. Meta argues that without some kind of standardized, industry-wide approach, maybe from the app stores or even a government digital ID, they're basically playing catch-up, trying to verify billions of existing users.
So they want the app stores to be the gatekeepers. They're pushing for that. Stronger verification at the point of entry, so it's consistent across the whole digital ecosystem. But what happened in Australia sets a clear precedent. Regulators are losing patience with technological excuses.
So this crisis is forcing a generational discussion on platform accountability. Now let's pivot from digital ethics to the literal arms race in autonomous systems.
You have to talk about Harmattan AI. It's a Paris-based defense tech company, and they just hit unicorn status.
A $1.4 billion valuation.
After raising $200 million in a round, led by Dassault Aviation, the company that makes a Rafale fighter jet, this shows that Europe is getting very serious about autonomous defense.
And what are they selling that's worth that much?
They specialize in low-cost, efficient autonomous drone systems. Their key innovation is in swarm intelligence and AI-driven target identification.
So drones that think for themselves as a group.
Essentially, yes. They can deploy hundreds of network drones that coordinate their own search patterns and track targets without a human controlling every move. They've already got orders for over 1,000 drones from the French military and a big investment from the UK.
And here's where it gets interesting. That pressure to innovate in defense tech always bleeds over into civilian life, and fast.
Immediately. If you shift to civilian robotics, look at Motional. That's the joint venture between Hyundai and Aptiv.
They're launching a fully driverless robotaxi service in Las Vegas.
By 2026, using the electric Hyundai ioniq 5.
That seems incredibly optimistic. I mean, we see these robotaxis in places like Los Angeles and Miami constantly causing problems, crashing, stopping in the middle of the street. How can they possibly be ready in just 2 years?
That's a fair question, and the industry knows people are skeptical. Motional's strategy is based on two things. First, it's a contained environment. The Vegas Strip is geometrically simple and has been meticulously mapped. It's way easier than the chaos of downtown LA.
And second, they're banking on friendlier regulation in Nevada.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nevada wants to be a showcase for this tech. But the core problem remains. You have to convince the public that these things are truly safer than a human driver. The debate around safety and liability is still the biggest roadblock.
And we see that same hesitation extending right into our homes, too.
You do. Companies are introducing domestic robots like Eggy and Neo for chores, but there's a clear public apprehension. The sources even mentioned the collective skepticism about letting an AI load your dishwasher.
It reflects a profound trust gap. I trust an AI to identify a hostile target 500 kilometers away, but I don't trust it with my good china.
It's about control. We accept AI risk when the stakes are abstract and far away, but we demand control when it enters the sanctuary of our homes.
Moving on to energy and labor, let's talk about small modular reactors, or SMRs. They're always touted as the carbon-free future, but the reality seems a lot rockier.
They do promise decentralized, carbon-free power, and they're attracting huge investment, like the U.S. Department of Energy's recent $900 million.
But they face huge obstacles.
Immense structural obstacles. One of the biggest is the supply chain. SMRs require specialized components, and they often rely on a specific fuel, HALEU, which has a very limited and complex supply chain right now.
So even if the design is scalable, the parts aren't available. What about the money?
The financing hurdles were massive. The initial cost for the first few SMRs is astronomical, and the long regulatory approval times create huge risks for investors. On top of all that, you still have persistent public fear about safety and long-term waste management.
So that $900 million investment could easily get swallowed by delays and opposition.
Very easily.
Finally, let's turn to the strain on India's tech talent pool, which is being caused by tougher U.S. visa vetting.
This is causing some serious economic friction. The U.S. has really increased its vetting of H-1B visa applicants. That's the temporary work visa the tech sector relies on.
And it's focusing on online activity, social media, all of that.
Right, trying to verify every detail of an applicant's life, and this has caused catastrophic delays. We're seeing highly qualified Indian engineers getting interview appointments scheduled as far out as 2027.
2027, that's a 3-year lag.
For a key workforce that drives U.S. tech competitiveness, it's a huge bottleneck that hurts India's software companies and inadvertently creates economic harm for the U.S., pushing that talent to other markets.
Okay, we shift now into the deeply complex and volatile world of geopolitics, moving from technological friction to literal warfare. And we have to start with the incredibly alarming situation in Iran.
The severity of the unrest in Tehran and across Iran is just extreme. Reports from independent sources are describing the capital as looking like a war zone. Some sources are even saying streets have been literally drenched in blood.
That is a staggering claim, and the human cost, according to rights groups, is immense.
It is. In one statistic, over 100 bodies were received by just 2 hospitals in Tehran in a 2-day period. That's a grim indicator.
Yeah.
And the human rights activist news agency, or HRANA, puts the nationwide death toll at over 500 across at least 30 Iranian provinces.
And amidst all this, Iran has issued a very stern warning of retaliation against the U.S. military.
The threat of escalation is very real. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, has really amped up the rhetoric, flat out accusing the U.S. and Israel of orchestrating the violence.
He's claiming they have evidence of armed operatives infiltrating the protests.
That's the claim, that these operatives are shooting at both demonstrators and security sources to create a pretext for an external military attack.
Which is the classic conflict narrative, blame external forces for internal dissent.
Exactly. Domestically, it delegitimizes the protesters. Internationally, it's a warning to the U.S. that any direct intervention will be met with retaliation.
But at the same time, protesters are using technology to fight back against censorship.
They are. They're relying on the Starlink satellite internet service to get around government blocks and post real-time updates to the outside world.
Let's move east to the Russia-Ukraine war, where we're seeing continued escalation with advanced weapons and strategic targeting.
That's right. Russia recently used its hypersonic Oreshnik missile system.
Which is nuclear capable.
It is. And they used it to strike a Ukrainian aircraft repair plant in Lviv, which is a city very close to the Polish border, a clear signal to NATO's periphery.
And Moscow's claim was that this facility was servicing F-16s.
F-16s, MiG-29s, and producing long-range drones. So using a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile that close to a NATO border is a significant escalation in signaling.
And Ukraine is, of course, retaliating with its own sophisticated targeting.
Indeed. Ukraine reported successful hits on 3 Russian Lukoil oil drilling platforms deep in the Caspian Sea.
Which shows their ability to damage key Russian economic assets that fund the war.
Right. And on top of that, the UK announced it's developing a new deep strike ballistic missile, codenamed Nightfall, which would further bolster Ukraine's long-range capabilities.
On the political front, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is continuing to solidify the wartime administration.
He's moved to extend martial law and general mobilization for another 90 days.
Which effectively postpones national elections again.
It does, a move that Moscow predictably calls illegitimate. And it comes amid some domestic political challenges, with polls showing the former commander, Valery Zaluzhny, gaining support as a potential rival.
Okay, now we have to address some extremely controversial and explosive claims coming out of the region, and we have to report on these impartially, recognizing the huge propaganda war that's going on.
These are highly serious allegations, though they are unverified. A former Dutch mercenary, known only as Hendrik, has made some alarming claims about his time with Kiev's military.
He's alleging corruption, abuse, and explicit neo-Nazi affiliations in certain units.
Yes. Specifically, he reported seeing Nazi symbols and practices within the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade, which has historical ties to the Azov Regiment.
And he also claims that criminal elements have been integrated into the ranks.
Correct. Hendrik claimed that the military includes drug cartel members from Latin America and that these fighters were engaging in severe war crimes, including the torture of Russian prisoners of war.
Now, these assertions, whether they're true or not, feed directly into Moscow's narrative about needing to denazify Ukraine.
They absolutely do. We have to see them as part of an active information war. Russia immediately seizes on any testimony like this to justify its aggression, but at the same time, claims this serious demand independent investigation because if there's any truth to them, they damage the moral standing of the Ukrainian defense.
It's a battle for narrative and global public opinion.
A crucial part of the conflict.
Let's move to the Western Hemisphere now, looking at aggressive U.S. pressure on Cuba and Venezuela, specifically after the dramatic U.S. action against the Venezuelan leader.
Right. U.S. President Donald Trump really escalated things following what the U.S. calls the apprehension of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro.
An apprehension that Cuban and Venezuelan sources are widely calling a kidnapping or abduction.
That's right. And following this, Trump announced a total cutoff of all Venezuelan oil and financial aid to Cuba. It's an economic sledgehammer.
And he didn't just stop with sanctions. He issued a direct, hostile ultimatum.
He urged Cuba to make a deal before it is too late. This is clearly aimed at dismantling the strategic alliance between Havana and Caracas, using the threat of economic collapse as leverage.
And Cuba's response from President Miguel Díaz-Canel was defiantly nationalistic.
Absolutely defiant. Díaz-Canel asserted Cuba's sovereignty, its right to import oil from anywhere, and he denied any illicit deals with Venezuela.
And then Trump added another layer by suggesting his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, as a potential leader for Cuba.
A clear signal of a regime change strategy.
And these political actions have huge economic ripple effects that spread way beyond the Caribbean.
The clearest example is India. Reliance Industries, their top refiner, is now scrambling to get U.S. authorization to resume buying Venezuelan oil.
Why?
Because they're under increasing pressure from the U.S. to scale back their purchases of Russian crude due to the Ukraine sanctions. It's the global dance of sanctions. Close one supply route, and you have to open another.
It shows how U.S. policy in the Caribbean creates immediate, complex problems for major global companies.
Exactly.
Let's quickly cover a few key accountability and diplomatic fallout points, starting with Gaza.
Hamas has announced a conditional agreement. They say they will dissolve their Gaza government once a U.S.-brokered peace plan establishes a technocratic leadership committee.
But the devil is in the details, which are missing.
Completely missing. The timeline, the identities of these non-political leaders, it's all unknown. At the same time, the UN is warning of an impending lost generation of Palestinian youth due to trauma and hunger.
We also saw continued friction on the Lebanon-Israel border.
Israeli airstrikes are still targeting Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese Ministry of Health confirmed a civilian was killed in an airstrike in Bin Jbeil. Israel maintains these are necessary to secure its borders.
And finally, a small but symbolic step towards stability for Sudan.
After nearly 3 years of conflict, Sudan's transitional government has returned to the capital, Khartoum. They had been operating from Port Sudan. It's a positive step, but the internal divisions there are still profound.
This next section focuses on shifting alliances, specifically looking at how internal political and economic pressures are causing significant cracks in major sovereign blocs, starting with the European Union.
The EU is facing some really sharp criticism from within. A prime example is the Slovak Prime Minister, Robert Fico. He openly demanded the replacement of the EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Kaja Kallas,
who is typically seen as a very strong voice against Russia. So what's Fico's core criticism?
He argues the EU is focusing too heavily on animosity towards Russia and military aid to Kiev. He thinks it's ineffective and a huge financial burden. But what's really fascinating is his accusation of moral hypocrisy.
How so?
He pointed out the inconsistency between the EU's unified, swift sanctions against Russia and its fragmented, much less decisive response to Israel's actions in Gaza.
So he's arguing this inconsistency undermines the EU's moral credibility.
Exactly. He's challenging whether the EU applies ethical standards equally across all geopolitical crises.
And we're seeing similar internal friction playing out in France over the Mercosur trade agreement.
Yes. The French government is facing 2 no-confidence motions, largely because of fierce opposition to this proposed trade deal with South American countries.
French farmers are afraid it will flood their market with cheaper, lower-standard agricultural goods.
That's the economic fear. And then there's the environmental fear. Groups argue the deal encourages deforestation in the Amazon by increasing demand for South American beef, which flies directly in the face of France's own climate pledges.
And this led to widespread protests, with farmers blocking ports and highways.
It did. The crisis isn't abstract. It's driven by very real, local economic and environmental fears that are challenging the entire government.
Now let's jump across the Atlantic to the high Arctic, where the sovereignty of Greenland is a hot topic again, thanks to the U.S. president.
The tension resurfaced after President Trump's threat of force regarding the island. Denmark's prime minister called it a crucial diplomatic phase, while Greenland itself issued a firm and immediate rejection.
What is Greenland's official stance on this?
They asserted their national security priority is defense through NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, not acquisition by a single foreign power. They said they welcome exploration, but their sovereignty is non-negotiable.
And NATO itself is reportedly getting involved in a highly unusual way to try and de-escalate this.
This is one of the strangest diplomatic maneuvers we've seen. Reports say that key NATO members, specifically the UK and Germany, are considering ramping up their own military presence in Greenland.
To do what?
The stated goal is to calm Trump and prevent the U.S. from taking a unilateral, aggressive action to claim the island.
So an alliance is increasing military presence in the territory of one member, Denmark, to prevent another powerful member, the U.S., from trying to seize it. That is fundamentally unstable.
It creates enormous internal friction. It highlights profound concerns about the stability of the alliance's core principles. Greenland is just too strategically vital, and when one ally threatens another sovereignty, the whole foundation of collective defense is shaken.
Finally, let's look at justice on the world stage, specifically at The Hague.
The International Court of Justice, or ICJ, is holding landmark 3-week hearings. The case was initiated by the Gambia, accusing Myanmar of genocide against its Rohingya minority.
Stemming from the 2017 military campaign, what are the stakes here for international law?
They're monumental. This case could set a vital precedent for how similar allegations are handled globally. The ICJ doesn't have strong enforcement powers, but it provides a crucial platform for acknowledging victims and legally labeling the acts as genocide.
And shifting from legal proceedings to strategic partnerships, we saw a key diplomatic visit to India.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz made his first official visit to India, landing in Ahmedabad. The main goal is strengthening the strategic partnership between New Delhi and Berlin.
And specifically, to finalize a long-awaited EU-India free trade agreement.
Right. It reflects a broader trend of European nations deepening ties with key Asian partners to diversify their economic relationships and reduce their reliance on any single trading partner, especially China.
Now we move to the intersection of finance and politics, centered around an investigation that many are calling completely unprecedented, the criminal probe into U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell.
This is a tectonic shift. The criminal investigation into Powell by the Department of Justice, the DOJ, has progressed to the point of issuing subpoenas. To have the head of America's central bank under active criminal investigation is genuinely unprecedented pressure.
How is Powell responding to this?
He's publicly called the probe a pretext for political interference. He claims it stems directly from President Trump's desire to influence monetary policies, specifically to push the Fed to lower interest rates faster than Powell and the committee think is wise.
This highlights that historical tension between a president and the supposed independence of the central bank. But how unprecedented is an active DOJ criminal investigation?
Historically, the Fed's integrity is meant to be firewalled from politics to maintain market confidence. An active criminal investigation, even if it's about tangential things, seriously threatens that perceived autonomy that global markets rely on.
What was the immediate market reaction?
The initial reaction was volatility. The S&P 500 dipped. But the most telling move was the surge in gold prices to record highs.
The classic flight to safety.
Exactly. When political instability hits the core of the financial system, investors flee to assets like gold.
And this is all happening against a backdrop of fierce economic debate. You have market strategists like Kenny Polcari arguing Powell should ignore all the pressure and hold rates steady.
Polcari's argument is that cutting rates right now would be a huge mistake. He says it could lead to profoundly negative consequences, especially with ongoing inflation risks. He's advocating for stability, even if it brings political heat.
Zooming out, let's look at the staggering trillion-dollar economic realities defining our time, starting with debt interest payments.
This is a huge milestone. For the first time ever, global national governments are predicted to face debt interest payments of over $1 trillion in 2024.
And that's just the interest on the debt.
Just the interest, not the principal. And at the same time, the U.S. national debt is soaring, with military spending alone getting close to $1 trillion.
What's the consequence of that much debt alongside huge wealth disparity?
The consequence is a structural realignment of the whole system. These structural financial changes, the soaring debt, the shifting centers of wealth, they will define the future global order far more than the current geopolitical conflicts.
And how does China fit into this trillion-dollar picture?
Well, China is showing its own trillion-dollar ambitions, but theirs are focused on market surplus and massive investments in research and development, R&D. It's a strategic long-term shift to strengthen their domestic market and tech capabilities.
And we saw a major success story out of their quantitative finance sector.
We did. China's quantitative hedge fund, High Flyer Quant, achieved a remarkable 56.6% return in 2025. This shows the rising dominance of these purely algorithmic, automated investment strategies.
Finally, let's discuss corporate relocation and global trade, starting with a potential exodus from Silicon Valley.
This is the story about Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the Google co-founders, possibly pulling back from California. The concern is a proposed one-time 5% levy on billionaires' total assets.
It's 5% tax on total assets, not just income. That's a serious disincentive.
It's a profound one, and it reflects a broader trend of wealthy individuals reevaluating where they live. Experts predict this could seriously compromise California's status as the definitive innovation hub.
On a more positive note for global trade, China and the European Union seem to resolve a major point of friction over electric vehicles.
Yes, after long negotiations, they reached an agreement on tariffs on EVs. This is a vital outcome. It eases trade tensions in a crucial global sector and is seen as a big step towards cooperation in green technology.
And looking at critical infrastructure growth, Ethiopia is making some massive continent-defining moves.
Ethiopia has started construction on the Bishoftu International Airport, or BIA. This is a massive $12.5 billion project designed to be Africa's largest aviation hub by 2030.
And it's projected to handle 110 million passengers a year.
An astonishing number. This positions Ethiopia not just as a major player in African travel, but as a global competitor for a dominant transit hub.
Let's pull back now from the immediate financial crisis and look at how history continues to reveal itself, starting with some fascinating archaeological discoveries.
We had the incredible discovery of a perfectly preserved carnix in England.
Which is much more than just a trumpet. It's a stylized, animal design bronze horn used by Celtic warriors during the Iron Age.
Exactly. And it was used specifically for psychological warfare. This terrifying, booming roar was designed to scare the Roman legions and inspire courage in the Celtic tribes.
And from a battle trumpet to a very sophisticated piece of ancient hunting tech, the poisoned arrow.
This is a major breakthrough from Sabutu caves in South Africa. Researchers found 60,000-year-old poisoned arrowheads. They're the earliest known examples.
And what does that tell us about early human intelligence?
It shows profound intelligence. They had a detailed understanding of their environment, able to extract toxic substances from specific plants or animals to create highly effective weapons. It meant they could take down larger prey from a distance, reducing risk and conserving energy.
We also have a very modern attempt to extract information from an ancient genius, Leonardo da Vinci.
The J. Craig Venter Institute is trying to extract DNA from Da Vinci's chalk drawing, The Holy Child. They think the chalk might preserve trace genetic material, like skin cells or hair, better than other materials.
And the ultimate goal is to learn about his health and artistry.
Right. To compile a genetic profile and compare it with possible living descendants to confirm his lineage and settle some long-standing historical questions.
And speaking of figures who shaped our understanding of the past, we have to note the passing of a pioneer in non-traditional archaeology.
Yes, the Swiss writer Erich von Däniken passed away. He was famous for pioneering the controversial concept of alien archaeology with his 1968 book, Chariots of the Gods.
His theories that ancient structures were evidence of extraterrestrial visitors.
They captured the global imagination and sparked decades of debate, fundamentally changing how some people looked at the ancient world.
Shifting to modern crises, the immediate impact of extreme weather and infrastructure failure.
The crisis after Storm Goretti in the UK really highlighted how vulnerable our infrastructure is. Tens of thousands of homes were left without a water supply. Kent County Council had to declare a major incident.
And it wasn't just the storm, it was the aging infrastructure failing under the stress.
Exactly. Power loss disrupted old pumping stations. The water company had to set up a priority register just to deliver bottled water to vulnerable people, a failure of basic services.
Meanwhile, the opposite extreme hit Northern Europe.
A severe cold snap in northern Finland. Temperatures dropped to minus 38 degrees Celsius in Lapland. It completely grounded all flights from Kittilä Airport, stranding thousands of tourists during peak season, a logistical and economic nightmare.
And in the mountains, the dangers are persistent and tragic.
We saw multiple tragic avalanche incidents. In the French Alps, a British skier was buried and couldn't be revived. There were also incidents in Andorra. It just emphasizes the profound dangers of off-piste skiing in unstable conditions.
And finally, a powerful visual reminder of climate change.
Astronomers observed a massive iceberg that's developing this striking blue hue as it melts. This happens when the ice is highly compressed, with almost no air bubbles. So this blue color is visual proof of climate change, revealing the deepest, oldest layers of ice as the mass shrinks.
Our final segment brings us back to societal accountability, starting with a significant legal development regarding a long-term detainee at Guantanamo Bay.
The UK has agreed to pay substantial compensation to Abu Zubaydah, a Palestinian citizen who's been held without trial since 2006, one of the forever prisoners.
Why is the UK paying? They weren't the ones holding him.
The compensation settles a lawsuit that asserted the UK's complicity in his torture overseas. His lawyers argued that British intelligence helped American interrogators by providing questions, even though they knew he was being tortured at CIA black sites.
So it highlights the legal liability nations face for indirect involvement in torture.
It's a highly significant development.
Shifting to culture, we saw Hollywood use the Golden Globes for activism.
It was a blend of glamour and politics. While Timothée Chalamet won his first Golden Globe, The more lasting image was all the celebrities wearing "Be Good" pins to protest icy immigration and customs enforcement policies.
And host Nikki Glazer delivered some memorable comedic commentary.
She did. Her most notable jab was at Leonardo DiCaprio's tendency to date significantly younger women. It was a blend of humor, a pretty pointed societal observation on power dynamics and celebrity.
Lastly, a massive financial drain on the UK's National Health Service, the NHS, driven by administrative failure.
This is a severe internal issue they're calling a vicious cycle of delayed discharges. The NHS is wasting billions of pounds a year because patients who are medically fit to leave remain in hospital beds.
Why? Because the community care arrangements aren't ready for them.
Exactly. Not enough social care resources, funding shortages, staffing gaps. So this bureaucratic inefficiency is costing the health service billions and tying up vital hospital beds needed for new, acutely ill patients.
That was a tremendous amount of ground we covered today, from Neanderthal genes all the way to modern bureaucratic failures.
The core tensions are pretty stark, aren't they? The battle for tech ethics with the Grok deepfake scandal, the struggle for financial autonomy with the Fed probe and soaring debt, and the complex, bloody crises defining the map in Iran, Ukraine, and the Arctic.
And what stands out, and what we really hope you, the learner, take away, is how deeply connected all these seemingly separate events are. The Neanderthal genetics that might shape your sensitivity to pain, the geopolitical fight over Greenland, the trillion-dollar financial shifts, all of it is shaping the world you live in right now.
It certainly is. We've seen how ancient biology dictates our vulnerabilities today, and how next-gen AI immediately creates next-gen ethical catastrophes that regulators are just scrambling to address. It's this constant battle between progress and responsibility.
So we'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. Given that technology is advancing faster than our ability to regulate it, and global national debt is soaring past $1 trillion in interest payments alone, what will be the ultimate cost, socially, economically, or even biologically, of technological progress that continues to outpace human wisdom?
Will we ever truly learn to manage the power we unleash? Keep thinking about that. And thank you for joining us for the Deep Dive.
We'll see you next time.
For enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.